Hey, what's up? This is Gary from Raz Rentals. Over the past 30 plus years, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has been doing its best to give us a horrifying number of diabolical duos. The Shredder and Krang, Bebop and Rocksteady, Trag and Granitor, Taco and Razor, Zarax and Zork? Who the heck are Zarax and Zork? Well, let's find out. The date today is December 4th, 2020. I just got these in the mail from Target. They were put up for sale on November 25th, and it took about a half an hour to 45 minutes for these guys to sell out, which is a pretty nice sized window. You know, it's a lot better than the 3 minute we were having whenever the toys were first starting going up on Target's website. And these guys have been showing up in stores for the past 3 to 4 weeks. And now, they're all mine. These two guys are Triceraton leaders, and boy, do they look fantastic. They come in this standard NECA TMNT packaging. Now, if you look, this is very much inspired by the Turtle Van from back in the day. You have a very nice big open window so you can see the guys inside. And, I think that this is interesting because other than that, the episode these two appear in, this is the only time where you actually get some artwork for Zarex and Zork. On the sides, you just have a little photo of the character, of the toy. And on the back, you got yourself a nice large picture of the two guys included, and down at the bottom you have a couple other sets that have been sold. You have the Triceraton Infantrymen and the Rock Soldiers and Metalhead. Unfortunately, we don't see any new characters down there. You know, it would have been cool if they would have included somebody like Splinter and Baxter or something like that, just to kind of, get you excited about what's coming next. The information here is not a description or biography of the two characters. This is just kind of like a generic explanation of the Ninja Turtles. I kind of wish that they would have like bios here or have like some information like the weapons, like names of what the weapons are that each figure comes with. But, we don't get that. That's just a minor nitpick I have. These guys don't really have much of a history or backstory anyways. They're only in a episode for about 5 minutes, if that. So let's open these guys up and take a look and see what's going on inside. Inside of the box behind the figures, there's a picture of the Technodrome. But in all honesty, these guys have nothing to do with the Technodrome, Shredder, Krang, or Dimension X. They come from a different planet, and in the episode they appear, they don't even cross paths with any of that gang. So, it's just here because it's the villain backdrop. Here is Zarex and Zork out of the package, and man, they look amazing. Now, when I saw the initial shots of these guys, my first thought was, wait a minute, there was a green Triceraton? So I went and I pulled out my DVD, Season 7, and I highly recommend that season. Seasons 1, 2, and 7, I think, are the best seasons of the old cartoon. So I watched the episode, The Night of the Dark Turtle, and there he was, the cool green Triceraton. Now, it's no wonder why this guy didn't really leave an impression on me, and mostly it's because the Triceratons are hardly in that episode. They're only in for about 4 minutes. It's ridiculous, actually. They should have split it up into 2 episodes. The first part of the storyline is Donatello getting shocked and his personality changes, so he becomes the Dark Turtle. And then he's on the hunt to try to find the Shredder and kill him. And the Turtles are trying to stop that. And midway through the episode, at about 10 minutes, I think it was 10:57 on Amazon Prime, the Triceratons show up on Earth, and they just start rounding up people, and they open up a Stargate to send Earth to their planet so they can enslave humanity and strip the Earth of all of its resources. So really, these guys are only in there kind of like an afterthought. And it's kind of a bummer. Like I said, they should have split it up into 2 episodes. 1 episode with the Dark Turtle and 1 episode with the Triceratons. I mean, they should have given these... first of all, they should have made these guys a little more what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like scary, you know, like they should have been more of like a major threat. They're kind of jokey in that Donatello kind of tricks them by shooting something with an eye laser and tricking them into thinking that he like rules the planet or something like that. They beat him. They beat them extremely easy. So it's kind of a letdown. But you know, the Triceratons show up in every other cartoon. They showed up in the 2003 show. They showed up in the 2012 show. They had huge storylines in those shows. And but Zarax and Zork here, never to be seen again. They only had that one episode in season 7 of the original cartoon, and that was it. I'm really glad that NECA decided to release these guys because, to me, that makes it seem like NECA is willing to dive deep into the obscure characters from the cartoon. I mean, these guys probably only have a screen time of like 2 minutes apiece or something like that. Something insanely small. So, you know, it's pretty cool that they're showing some love to these long forgotten characters. And, you know, I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer. You have the Triceratons in general are very popular. And you make the infantrymen, and you only have to change, you know, a few parts, and you got these other two guys. Some people might think that's a cheap cash-in, but I don't, because I think that the heads and the armor on each one of these characters is very personal to each one of them. Like, to me, even though they reuse a bunch of parts, I don't feel like I'm getting ripped off here. You know, Zarex, to me, he looks like a decorated officer. You know, he's more a prestigious kind of guy. And Zork, in my opinion, you know, he looks more like a brawler. The guy who's carrying out all of Zarex's dirty work. Since the beginning of this line, all these bigger figures have kind of had the same buck or base figure. They all have like the same upper torso and lower torso pelvis area. The biggest difference here is that each one of them has these like overlays of rubber on top that changes the aesthetic or, you know, the appearance of them. So they all kind of have the same like skeletal, you know, build underneath. But, you know, he's got, this is like a rubber piece right here. The chest plate, his belly, and the shoulder pads on Leatherhead, his underbelly, and his jacket are all one piece. And Bebop has the actual, you could see his, the torso that you would see underneath these guys. Same thing with the pelvises. These rubber pieces sit on top of an actual piece underneath. So that's how they're able to change all these while still producing the same figure. Now the arms are all the same, you know, from the beginning up until Zork here. And pretty much all the legs are the same, except there are some differences, like on Bebop and Rocksteady. On Rocksteady, they added these like pockets, and on Bebop, they added these straps. But in general, they are the same thing. They just, you know, somehow added that piece. And you can see because on the sides of them here, Leatherhead's not going to stand up. I'll hold him. You can see on Zork here, he has wrinkles on the sides of his legs. I don't know, you know. So it looks like he's still wearing these pants. The knee joints are all the same. It's just the bottom of the legs are different. Now, Zork here, him and Leatherhead are more similar than him and Bebop in that they both have the tail. Now, these Triceratons in the cartoon should not have these crocodile alligator tails. They should have like a smoother tail, like a dinosaur. But they keep on reusing this part. And I don't understand why they keep doing that. Because, you know, if they could use this same leg mold, but just kind of add certain different things to it. Like, you know, you have Rocksteady here. That's the same leg. They just added these pockets. So if they could do something like adding pockets, why couldn't they take this tail and get rid of all these extra spikes here? Because, you know, it doesn't bother me too much, but it is something that's not accurate to the cartoon, and it would look more like a Triceraton if it was smooth, from the old toy all the way to the comic books to now. It's more like a, you know, the alligator tail is more like a Stegosaurus kind of thing. Now, the other difference here is that most of these bigger figures have 3 fingers and a thumb, and the Triceratons have hands that have 2 fingers and a thumb. And they have different feet. The Triceraton here has 3 feet. And like even the bottom here, these like shins, calves, this is the same design as leather heads, shins, and calves. They just added this extra cuff here to make it appear as he has boots on. It may sound like I'm complaining, but I'm really not. I'm just kind of pointing out all these things going on here. But his feet are different than the regular Triceraton infantryman feet. See, these are a lot bigger, and these are kind of like squished together and made to look more like a boot. Now that is an opposing picture. If you stand all these Triceratons next to each other, they all look really great, you know? They all match each other. It looks like some parts in the faces are kind of shared between them, but the portions of the faces are different. Because this guy, his head is a little thinner. This guy, he's got a wider face, and he is kind of right in the middle. But the eyes, there is something very similar with the eyes and the eyebrows, except for him. The beak, like that beak there, matches that beak a lot, but this beak looks a little like stretched out. I don't know how they produced these. I don't know if they like digitally sculpted them and then just kind of took some things and moved them around. You know, I can't say anything for definite, but I kind of get that feeling about them. Now, each one of their frills is different. He's got this cool, you know, like more star-shaped frill. His is like very spiky and sticking out, and his is just kind of rounded and indented. I don't know. Out of all of them, like I said, Zork is my favorite. I like the different horns. It definitely gives each one of these their own personality, where he's got these little like batons, or I don't know what they are, on top. And his nose horns stick straight up. This guy, his horns just kind of stick out, kind of normal. And then, you know, Zork here, his horns are very spiky and they stick out forward, I guess, to make it look more like he could go on the attack. And in the cartoon, he actually tries to ram one of the turtles, and he like puts his head into, I think, a car or something like that. But if you want something done, if you need some dirty deeds done, he's your guy to call. Now, it may sound like I'm complaining about the reuse of parts here, or like whatever, but I'm really not. I think it's interesting to see like how these characters, how they're able to get so many different figures by reusing the same parts. And also, I think each character, you know, from Bebop and Rocksteady to these guys, has had their own distinct look. Like, everything they add to the figure makes them different enough that unless you were really like being anal retentive and like looking into it as thorough as like I'm trying to do, like, you wouldn't notice these things and you wouldn't care. You just put them up on your shelf and you'd move them around and do what you want with them. So, no complaints. I'm happy so far. And so, when it comes to articulation, I gotta say that the past two releases before this and this one have all been pretty good. For a long time, the joints were like completely stiff and you could hardly move them. But I think that since the Rock Soldiers and the Triceraton Infantry men and these guys, they all move very well right out of the box. Now, because of the way his head is shaped, you can't really look up too high. Just there. But you could turn it somewhat. Very well. Now, it's kind of hard to move his jaw, not because it's stiff or anything like that, just because it's so far up there that I usually just kind of have to like stick something in there. And luckily, the joint is nice and loose, so it doesn't take much to actually pop it out of place. Now, if you look underneath his neck here, you can see the black from the inside of his mouth, but most of the times you're probably going to look at this guy straight on or from above, so you won't even notice that, especially if you have the mouth open. You know, barking orders at the other Triceratons. Get the turtles! And, like I said, I really, you know, there's things about this guy that I think is cool. I like that he does look like a military man. He's got like, you know, like I said, I don't know what these are. I don't know if these, like, what they are, but they look cool. They make him look a little more dignified. Like, he's too good to use his horns. Like, he doesn't have to use them anymore. He just has to send out the soldiers to do that. And you have these little ribbons on his chest. I like this piece, his chest piece here. He has rotation in the upper torso, and you can rock it a little bit, and you can't really, you can get it to rock front and back a little bit. The back of him, you know, it's just a solid piece of armor. And every single one of these guys have different armor than each other Triceraton, which is pretty nice. So like I said, they're all distinct. In his shoulders, he can rotate them around, but he can only rotate so much before he's stopped by that awesome shoulder pad. These shoulder pads would make Wolverine jealous, I think. He's got a cut in his bicep that he can swivel around, and he's got double jointed elbows. His hand can rotate all the way around, and he's got a little hinge in there. His tail could rotate. Now, I did have a hard time getting these tails in, not because it was too stiff or anything like that, but because the tail joint seems a lot looser than like Leatherhead and the Triceraton infantry guy. So whenever you were trying to like stick it onto that little piece that sticks out, that piece would just like push to the side. So it was just kind of a pain in the neck, you know, lining it up properly. I don't think he has a cut. No, I don't think he has a cut in the like the lower torso, the stomach area. Now the way his legs are set up is he has ball joints here, and you could rotate on that ball and rotate forward and everything like that. And then he's also supposed to have rotation here within like the hip joint. So you could get like a double rotation, but sometimes having those two joints like that right on top of each other, it's kind of hard to get this one to begin to move, because when you try to move this, you just move the ball joint. But I think that it's not that big of a deal, because most of the positions you want to get him in, you just have to rotate it one or the other. This piece of rubber here in his pelvis doesn't really hinder the legs too much. You can lift his leg up pretty well. He has double jointed knees, and this is the only part where I could not get this one. I cannot get that joint to move at all. I put some hot water on it, and I just can't get it. I think it's like painted in place. So cannot get that one. He doesn't have a cut in his shins, or, you know, he's got no cut here, so you can't rotate there. But he has these feet, and they can rock back and forth, and they can hinge front and back. And those are really good. Okay, so the paint looks really good on this guy, right? Like, all this stuff looks very clean and sharp and crisp and all that jazz, you know? He looks really good. There's some minor scuffs, but in general, he looks really great. However, here's when I come to a big negative for me. You see, I don't know why NECA continues to do this a lot with these Ninja Turtle figures, where they make the joints, like this little piece in here, a different color than the piece of plastic that surrounds it. I don't get it. So like, this little tiny thing in here is yellow. It's sculpted in this kind of, I think it's the darker yellow, maybe. No, maybe it's, I don't know. So it's, you know, the lighter or the darker yellow, and it's sculpted in that, and then they just paint it with this gray color. And as soon as you move it, the paint just starts coming right off. And that's happened all the way since Leatherhead. And I don't, maybe even before that, I don't know. Because, you know, you got Leatherhead here, and look at that. I tried painting mine with a Sharpie, but maybe, yeah, you could see it better on the back. Look at that. It's like a peach color in a black and blue joint. So like this one, they could have made this a gray. They should have made it gray, because the bottom of the shoe here is gray, and the pant leg here, or the boot leg, is gray. So it should have been gray. And the next problem is the hand joints. Now, for whatever reason, all right, I think that these arms are, you know, made in this lighter yellow color. So it's kind of like this lighter yellow color that these things are made, and then they just paint the darker yellow on the back. So for whatever reason, they made this hand, I believe, the brighter yellow, and then they painted the hand the darker color, the whole hand. So when you get into that joint, oh jeez, there we go. When you have this piece in here, this darker paint starts to chip off of this, and it gets all over the place. So the joint for the hand doesn't match. Now it's not as bad with this figure. Like that joint, you can look past that. Even the gray, it doesn't stand out too much. It's just kind of like one of those annoying deals. When we get to Zork, though, I think it makes a difference there. See that little tiny pieces of paint everywhere. Now we're going to talk about Zork. And in my opinion, I just like Zork better because green is my favorite color, and I just think he looks cool. I like his, more sharp kind of look. Like his horns stick out a little further, and his front horn sticks straight. He really looks like some guy who, would cause some kind of problem for the turtles. And his armor isn't as intricate as the other guy. Like it doesn't have like those ribbons on it and stuff like that, but it still looks pretty good. One thing I would have to say though is that this looks like a chest plate piece on top, right? And this piece here looks like it's supposed to be like his underbelly, because it kind of matches this the underbelly of the tail, but it doesn't really give that illusion in person. I don't think. I think it's it looks good, but they probably should have put like a little bit of paint underneath here just to kind of match it a little better. Now he has the exact same articulation as Zarex. The only thing I would have to say though is that his head, because he doesn't have those little nubs on the back, his head looks completely straight up, and you can get to look down. His head moves around a lot easier than the other guy. And because he has a wider face and a wider mouth, it's a lot easier to stick your hand up there. And because of the way that this mouth is made, you don't have that the black underneath. You just have green on the bottom, and it looks like they painted the top of his mouth red, and he just has like that little tongue stuck in there. Like I said, I love this guy. I think both are good, but this guy is better in my opinion. I like his shoulder pads. He has this extra belt, and this belt is not connected to the body. So when I got him, the belt was kind of crooked, and it was just very easy to take the belt and move it into place. And it goes all the way around him. It's kind of got like a, like a Cyclops belt kind of thing going on. And like I said, all of his articulation is the same as Zarex. Except he is even easier to move. In general, I think his paint looks really good. I think the legs look great. I think, the chest plate piece, his face looks amazing. I don't see any problems in there. He even has like these little extra like lines on the horns. I think that's what that is. I don't know if that's a accident scuff. But if it is an accident, I don't know. It looks fine to me. Now I question that, but I don't care. The biggest problem I have with him is the joints. Except this time, I think these really stand out. When Zarex, I think you could get away with it. This guy, you can't. For whatever reason, they painted his hands dark green, right? And in my opinion, the front of him is this light green, and then the shadow is the dark green. And I think that the hands should have been light green. And the joints in here are made in the light green. So, more so than the other guy, because, these greens are so different. The paint on here rubs right off as soon as you start to move it, and you can really notice it in there. Like, I don't know if these hands are painted dark green and then they were made in the light green color, but, these hands should have been light green. That's where they made a mistake. And the other mistake is in the feet. Again, they did the same thing where they made this little hinge in here light green, and then they colored it brown, and now all the brown is wearing off of it. Doesn't look too bad in the back, but in the front, look at that. See that? That's no es bueno. And even here, like the tops of the shoes, right? That should be brown, but they made these, they didn't paint that. They didn't paint in there. If you look at Zarex, they did paint inside of here gray, so it matches better. But here, they did not. It just has green inside. Other than those two joints, though, like, I really love this figure. I like him a lot more than Zarex. I'll probably put Zarex up in my upstairs display and put this guy on my desk next to my work computer. I do want to mention, too, that on the Triceraton Infantryman, they did make these hands the color of the lighter skin tone, and they didn't paint the hinges. They're all the same. And for whatever reason, they made these guys have darker hands than the base color for them. Both Triceratons comes with 5 hands. First, they come with a set of open palm hands. Then they come with a set of gripping hands so that they can hold the smaller guns, although these are very tight. And then they come with a larger gripping hand so that they can hold this Triceraton cannon. And it only comes on the right side because that's where you have the little telescope here. For accessories, these guys come with some cool ones. They come with this gun. Now, this actually appeared in the original Ninja Turtle toy line with the original Triceraton figure, and it was called the Laser Phaser. Now, let's be honest here, this is not really a Triceraton weapon, I guess. You know, this also was the weapon that Bebop uses in the first, like, 5 or so episodes of the original series. Next, we have the, well, I call this the Retro Mutagen gun because this gun originally came in the original toy line too, with Rocksteady. It looks like this. And this gun too was not used by Triceraton in the cartoon. It was used by Rocksteady in the first like 5 or so episodes. Now, here's a problem with these hands. When these guns came with the Triceraton Infantryman, they were actually a little loose in the hands. Well, no, I wouldn't say loose. They went in pretty well, right? But in these hands, they're very hard to get in. And I think part of the reason why is because these hands are painted. These hands were originally cast probably in that lighter color. So when I put this gun in here, I scraped up the paint. And it was very hard to get it into place. So, more so on the green hand, I was trying to put the laser phaser into this hand. And you can see that I was scraping the paint off of this hand. So, in my opinion, I wouldn't use either of these guns with the Triceratons. I would only use this cannon. And this cannon, the Triceratons actually do use in the cartoon. And, you know, first of all, it fits their motif. You got these, you know, 3 horns on the top of this thing. And I think this gun fits in their hands a lot easier. See that? Real simple. So, like I said, I would either give them this. I probably wouldn't even put this in Zork's hands. Because like I said, he to me looks like somebody who would, you know, he'd be like a brawler or probably use like a knife or something. However, Captain Zarex comes with his own special personal weapon. These cool wrist blades. Now in the episode when he's fighting the turtles, he pops these little blades out so that he can, you know, fight them and be like Wolverine. Now all you gotta do to get these on is you take your Zarex figure and you pop off the hands and you pop off the old wristbands and you just pop these back on and, you know, pop the hand in place. Now, each one of these is different, and you can see that on this hand, he kind of has like a T-shape hole, and on this one, it's more of like a kind of like an L shape, I guess. So these blades are made specifically for, you know, which side it needs to go on. You can see inside of here, there's a little block that sticks out, and that matches those holes. Now, getting these hands into place is a little tricky, and you can see here I actually scuffed this one up with the blade trying to put it in here. The problem is that it's a very tight area, and you don't want to accidentally break the blade, but you can force that hand in there, and these blades stick out about this far. Blah. See, in my opinion, these guns look a lot better with these two. You know, I mean, they're the guns they originally had to begin with. Also, their hands hold these guns a little better. You know, their trigger fingers actually go to the triggers, and it just looks a little more suited for them. If you look at the Triceraton here, when he's holding that gun, the laser phaser, his trigger finger doesn't go up to the trigger. This is where he just holds it by the handle. One minor negative detail here, but it's like you couldn't really fix it and have it work out for you, I guess, is that their pupils are always looking straight on their toy, right? And it looks great looking straight. The problem is that when you have them standing next to the Ninja Turtles, they can't put their heads down far enough to make it look like they're actually looking at the turtles. You can have the turtles looking up at them, but they will always look over their heads. And, you know, that's just one of those things where, like, they could have put the pupils further down on the eyes, but then anytime you were looking at it straight on, his eyes would always be looking down. So, you know, I'm sure it was just a decision they had to make here. If you were curious and you wanted to know how these guys stand up next to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Ultimates figure from Super 7, well, here you go. I think when it comes to scale, I think these guys are good because they're a lot taller than him still. But I feel like more so than like Bebop and Rocksteady and the Shredder, the expressions on these guys' faces are a lot more cartoony looking, so they don't necessarily cross over with this guy. It's the end of 2020, and this year was a pretty awesome year for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle collectibles. I gotta say, man. Like, all these NECA figures were awesome. 10 of these figures came out last year. I guess, you know, 2 came out last year, and really 8 came out the year before that. Something like that. Doesn't matter. The point is, look at all these extra figures we've gotten since the beginning of the year. Like, this is really expanding this line. It looks amazing. You know, even with the Ninja Turtle arcade line, like Slash, I love that Slash so much more than the cartoon Slash. So I just had to include him in there. And, you know, this is so many figures. Like, I couldn't even hardly fit any more figures on to the screen. Like, what am I going to do next year? How can you possibly shoot all of these guys in the same picture? It's ridiculous. But they all look really good. Now that we have this 2-pack of Triceratons, Zarex is now the tallest figure in this line. You know, the top of his frill and the top of his horns make him a lot bigger than everybody else. And I cannot wait. We're supposed to have like 2 more releases before the year is over, but we'll see if they come out. We're supposed to have a 4-pack of Disguised Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and if Loot Crate gets their stuff together, and hopefully they'll send us a cartoon a cartoon Loot Crate filled with Bebop and Rocksteady in their bunny costumes from the Easter episode of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, you know, things are going really great. You know, I'm really looking forward to next year. Baxter and Splinter are supposed to come out. We're supposed to get Mondo Gecko, Mutagen Man, or not, yeah, what's his name? Muckman and Joe Eyeball. We're supposed to get the Rat King and Vernon. Like, and we were supposed to have Krang in his android body this year, but it got pushed back to next year. I'm okay with that since, you know, I need some, my wallet needs some time to recover after all these amazing releases. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. And, I can't wait until next year to see everything new that comes out.